This is the Swarm and Shoot Football Show, episode number 9, with me, Manny Matsakis, the head football coach at Defiance College. On this podcast, we feature Defiance College football and everything that influences our program. Today, my special guest is Tristan Yeomans, who is our offensive graduate assistant. Hey, good morning, Tristan. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'll tell you, this is going to be fun. It's an interesting story how I met Tristan, and it actually happened when you were playing for my brother at the University of Kentucky, starting long snapper there, and easily, arguably played for the greatest team in Kentucky history there. You guys had a wonderful season, won the big bowl game against Penn State, and you were a big part of that, along with another, significant group of great seniors that came up in that program. And I definitely want to visit with you on some of that, because there's a lot that we're building here at Defiance College that, we can get from your experience. I know our players will get a lot out of that as well. Now, you grew up in South Georgia, and somehow you found your way to Lexington, Kentucky. How did that happen?
So I was actually committed to play wide receiver at a small college, Division III, actually in Georgia, LaGrange College. Mm-hmm. And a couple of days before I was supposed to report, I got a call from a coach in New Mexico, junior college there, New Mexico Military Institute. And go out there. Spent a semester, got the offer from Kentucky. I actually knew Austin McGinnis was the kicker there at the time. Had some mutual friends with him, so he got my film in front of the coaches. They liked it. I went on a visit, got me there in the spring, and then won the job the next fall, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. I mean, it's crazy. Where you're from is nothing like Lexington, Kentucky.
Not even close. It's a one-stop-light town.
Yeah, exactly. And, so it's pretty cool how guys can end up in different places. I mean, and then I think after the season, Louis had sent me, he had texted me, I think. He says, hey, I got a guy here that wants to get his MBA and really like to take a look at coaching football. And, his recommendation was all I really needed. And then he sent me your resume. We looked at, a bunch of different people that we were considering at that point. And then, you came up, checked it out. We were able to get you on board. And, now you're here in Defiance. And how was that just at first when we first started, visiting about coming up here as a graduate assistant and all that? Because it's funny when you just get done playing and now you're sitting there. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to put on a different hat, and it's totally different. What made you decide that you would want to get into coaching?
It's kind of been a passion for a long time. I mean, I love the game of football, and I don't see myself getting too far from it. I always wanted to do high school, really, but I figured I wanted to try it collegiately first, because once you go down to high school, it is a lot harder to get back up. And I figured, if I could get my master's in it while I'm doing it, and learn a few things, from some coaches.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's great because they're hard to get. I mean, graduate assistantships are very difficult to get, and it's especially if you didn't play there or, you have to have a contact. Obviously, you had Louis,
right.
who I've known his whole life. So,
right.
So that didn't hurt any. When let's just backtrack for a second about at the University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Right? Your head coach, Mark Stoops, he and I coached together at the University of Wyoming. When I was the offensive coordinator there, Mark was our secondary coach. And you knew he was going to be a great coach, head coach someday. He has certainly the family to do so. He's from Youngstown, Ohio. And it's sort of interesting to me when I think about where you're from in South Georgia, and now you step into a program with the culture built by a guy from Youngstown, Ohio, right? What were you thinking the first time you heard Coach Stoops address the team and how he operated?
I kind of had heard a little bit from him. Now, I didn't know him. I didn't know him as well as I did his brother, Bob Stoops. I heard about Bob Stoops, obviously, because he was at Oklahoma when I was growing up watching football. But the family name, really got me. I was like, man, I got a chance to play for a guy that's, the family's been around the game for a long time. So this is a stepping stone. Go and learn the game, play for a Power 5 program. So I mean, it was just a great opportunity for me, and I'm blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah. So what was different about a guy from Youngstown as opposed to some of the other coaches you had?
Well, he honestly his demeanor, the way he carries himself day in and day out. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is neat to see coaches from South Georgia, the way they do things, the way they run the program, and then the way Coach Stoops runs it. I mean, everybody runs their program a different way, and what Coach Stoops does obviously works. So, I've learned several different ways. Hopefully, if I'm a head coach one day, can take things away from both of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, without question. And so now you're a football coach. You've made the transition, and it's constantly, looking at some different things. So what is the thing that you see as the biggest transition from going from player to coaching?
It's kind of getting to know when you're playing, you're working out, you're going to practice film, but when you get into coaching, there's a lot of administrative stuff that a lot of things go into the program that you don't really understand as a player. And that's kind of what I'm getting, familiar with now, is that it's a lot. It's a lot to run a program, but it's fun. I mean, I'm excited to learn it. Obviously under you got a good resume speaking for yourself. So I'm excited to get started with it, man.
Well, okay, so now what lessons have you learned about football that you didn't know as a player? What are some things that you're like, oh, I had no idea that coaches do this?
The hours that they spend doing what they do. I mean, you can kind of guess they're always on the road recruiting, but I mean, there is a lot of stuff. You got to have a sacrificial family. It's gonna be a lot of time that they're gonna give up. But that's definitely the biggest thing, is the hours that they put in.
So as you're learning all this, and it's obviously something that we're working on this together as a staff, you get the opportunity here to coach receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you'll be working with the receivers, and that's one part of your job. Right? So what do you, as you're learning, this is a different offense
Mm-hmm.
than maybe what you played in, or certainly what you saw at Kentucky. How do you see yourself as a way that you can help these receivers get better this fall?
Try to build a tradition, set some standards that they live up to it. Like the block on the perimeter. A lot of people just want to go and get the ball, get the vertical, score all the touchdowns, but you got to do the dirty work. You got to work in the shadows sometimes. Block on the perimeter, turn them 6-yard runs into 6 points. So that's definitely one of the biggest things, is blocking on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no question. And to be the total package
Mm-hmm.
as a receiver and teach them how to work their craft is probably the biggest thing that you'll be able to show them, because, you in college, obviously, you played multiple positions in high school, but in college, you're in a very unforgiving position.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a guy as a long snapper at the highest level. If you're off by, 3 inches, I mean, the whole crowd knows it. Everybody knows it. I mean, everything's got to be spot on.
Right.
And the accuracy that people just don't realize in that position has to exist. How do you deal with those types of, how did you deal with those kinds of pressures, and how can you help our players understand that, hey, precision is key?
Repetition, perfect reps. Really, you can't end on something bad. You have got to practice it perfect, and it's not necessarily doing it live. It's visualizing it too. That was something that helped me. Something actually your brother taught me about. Mm-hmm. Big visualization, and
take us through that. What would you do?
Like I wouldn't necessarily have a ball in my hand. I would act like I would say the cadence through my head. Whether it be red or blue, and I would just go through it like our quarterback was saying it, and I would just practice a snap and not necessarily have a ball in my hand, but visualize a perfect spiral going back there and hitting him, where I need to hit him.
Yeah, and the higher level guys I've seen out there, from it doesn't matter if it's a Tom Brady or you name it. These guys are out there, and they understand the mental aspect of the game more than anybody. I mean, they know that's their edge. I think I saw an article in USA Today on Nick Foles, and he's talking about how he mentally prepares and what the things he has to take care of in his body to really be attuned as to what's going on. And I think the example that you're able to set with our guys is certainly something that's going to help us as we get into the season. Now, the other thing you're going to be working with is special teams, and I think it's certainly a huge part of the game. And special teams, you'll be in charge of the kickoff return unit. That's your baby. You'll be teaching it in front of the whole team, and all the other assistant coaches that are on that particular unit will report to you as we set things up in the game plan and work it up the chain of command to Coach Wilson, who's the special teams coordinator over everything. In knowing what you knowing our kickoff return and what it is we want to do, what are you trying to set the tempo with? In that particular unit?
Well, like you said, I mean, it's a third of the game. It's a big part of the game. So I think of it as the first play on offense. Let's set these guys up, get them down there to where they can score this thing. I want to score every time. Every time we're on kickoff return, our goal is to do our job individually, get the ball and take it to the house every single time. But get them in position, the offense, so that we can score.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, there's no doubt the offense. There's an old adage of where you start on the field increases your chances of scoring. So
no hidden yardage. Yeah, that's a big Louis Matsakis. Yeah, he's sent us through the whole schmeal several times.
Yeah, hidden yards are huge. Right?
It is. It's huge.
And for some of our people watching on YouTube and listening on the podcast in particular, it's like hidden yards is actually a formula that exists in the kicking game where you analyze each of the big four. And you're looking at kickoff return, punt return. And there's a yardage associated with it. So you might want to say, hey, on the punt team, we want to net 37 yards, all right, whatever that is. So every time we do better than that, let's say we do a 42-yard net, then we're sitting there with a +5. And then and so each unit is getting graded. And the funny thing is, it's like teams that chart this, and we've charted this for a couple decades now. And what happens is if you go +15 yards between all the stuff, +15, you will win the game like 80% of the time. It's like the number one indicator of victory that is not just sitting on the scoreboard. So the hidden yards we measure that throughout the game. And I know, Louis had brought that to me, and I thought that was just fantastic. I'm not sure exactly where he got it from, but he's one of those out of the box guys. I mean, what was it like playing for him?
Man, he was awesome. It was an adventure every day, man. We got our work done when we needed to, but he made it fun. I mean, we had a good group of guys too, so that helped. But we had all kind of games set up. You know how the specialists are, man. Some punt golf. Yeah, punt golf was one of the greats. Yes, sir.
Well, it's funny because we brought Louis up here in the spring, and he came up and he clinicked our whole staff on special teams, and it was tremendous. I mean, I learned so much. He played for me. And then he coached for me at Texas State, and just to see him grow in the profession to be doing what he's doing is fantastic. I think certainly a player's coach and a guy that understands the commitment it takes to get it done in the SEC. So, you sort of figured out that we look a little alike. I don't know how much alike. We're 16 years apart.
Yeah, walking shadows, basically.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. It's just an out of the box question. Okay, so you're just getting to know me in this thing, and compare Louis and me and what you see. Similarities, contrasts. What do you notice at this point?
The perfection. Y'all both want it done the right way all the time, and the competitive nature. I mean, you got to win them ball games. A lot of people that say it's not all about winning, they probably never won before.
That's right.
Y'all are both competitive and like it done the right way every single time.
Okay, so now I'm gonna just diverge totally because you just made me think of something. All right, y'all are playing Penn State in the bowl game, right? Okay, and it's pregame. You guys are out there warming up, right? And the Penn State guys are out there warming up, but they're like, I don't know if people understand, before a game, the specialists have a long side of the field and a short side of the field where you're supposed to be able to get your work done, right? And the Penn State guys were out there, I think it was like their quarterbacks, receivers, right?
Yep,
they're so-called prima donna guys, right? And they're out there, and they're in your space. How did Coach Louis Matsakis handle that?
He handled it very well, honestly. I mean, he was fired up. It was about 8 specialists plus him against maybe 40 of their guys. But I liked our odds because Louis was fired up. I'm telling you, he was.
So what happened?
He was. The guys, obviously, they got in our space, and we couldn't kick the ball. Like when I would snap it between my legs, they would kick it and knock it down. Well, Louis didn't like that too well, so he was up in their quarterback's face. He was up in their coach's face, and he said, well, I'm not going to get in trouble for talking to him, but y'all will get thrown out, so y'all stay over there. And he's just yelling at us, telling us to keep kicking, keep snapping, keep going. And I'm like, Coach, I'm on your team. Don't yell at me. Yell at them. I'm on your team. But it was good, man. It was hilarious. It set the tone for the game.
Oh, yeah. I think James Franklin was sort of taken aback in the whole deal, right? Because it's like the game hadn't started yet, but the Kentucky Wildcats came out and said, this is our home turf here, baby. It may be a bowl game, but we're going to get after you. And you guys really did.
We did.
I mean,
yes, sir.
Wow. What a game. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, that had to be awesome in the locker room after that. It was just festive environment. You had some good dudes on that team, and just a great team atmosphere. So, that's some of the things that our players and our fans here at Defiance College. We bring in a variety of experiences through. Each coach has a different background, and that's some of what you're going to be able to bring to the table for us. And I'm excited about that. Now that you've been in Defiance for a little while, and you look at the town. And you notice some of the things about it that are special, or certainly really an awesome place to be. What makes it such a great place to be?
Well, it's always going to be my first place, of work. But when you go out in public, I go to a restaurant and they kind of notice. They're like, "Hey, you coaching over at Defiance, or are you playing?" The first thing they ask is if I'm playing. And I say, "No, I'm actually going to be coaching." And they say, "Well, I hear some good things, going on over there." So the noise around town, that's always good to hear that. Get the community involved and all. So it's special knowing that the locals do care. The people around here do care about the program. They're excited to see some good things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And give me some insight you would give an incoming player. All right. What type of advice would you give a young man that's just coming into the program, usually out of high school or maybe transferring in? What's the advice you would give to a guy coming into this particular program?
I would say work hard and don't make excuses for your circumstances. These coaches know what they're doing through and through. This coaching staff knows what we're doing. So I want kids to work hard as you can, keep your nose clean, don't get in any trouble, and just be the best person you can be, because nowadays that's kind of underrated. It's cool to not hold the door for somebody or say please, say thank you. Those little things to me, they go back, that speaks something to me about how you were raised, and that's just something for sure, like just be the best person you can be all the time.
Wow, that's awesome. And thanks so much for joining the show, Coach Yeomans. And
absolutely.
We're fired up to have you on board. And if you're listening to this podcast on your podcast player, make sure that you subscribe on iTunes. Give us a rating. We got a lot of 5-star ratings, so if you want to do that, that'd be great. And put some comments on the show as well, because we do read those, and it helps us. We get fired up when they're good, and that always helps, and we're always trying to improve the program as well. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, and what we want, you can hit on YouTube, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel itself, and then there's a little bell there to the side that I noticed. If you hit it, just click it with your cursor there, then what happens is you'll get notifications when the next episode comes out. And then feel free to comment on this podcast in particular below each one, because we'll read some things. If you have some questions, anything you want to throw at us, do it there. That'd be great. We're easy to reach in that particular manner. I'd also want to let everybody know, our fans and people in town, to get ready for the Swarm and Shoot weekend. Understand that is Thursday night, September 19th. We have a night game. It's the home opener against Manchester at 7 p.m. So it starts off then. Then Friday morning, we get going with the Swarm and Shoot Golf Scramble. So if you want to sign up for that, we definitely get on our website and check that out. And that'll be quite an event. We'll have a lot of people golfing at that, and I get a chance to, to meet people in town, people that might have come in for the game the night before. And then Saturday, we wrap it up with our biggest fundraiser by far, which is the Touchdown Lottery at the Eagles Club downtown at 5 p.m. And you can sign up for these events, and you can check out our website right online at swarmandshoot.com, and it will have all the information for you regarding all this information. And hey, let's swarm together. And we're going to have a lot of fun this year, and join us next week to meet another key component to our success here at Defiance College.